I can't believe that you came into my life. You made me feel.
Hello. Today we're going to be talking about gray rock, and as you can see, I am outside, so I apologize in advance for any sort of extra noises like cars. It's just a very nice day outside, and I just wanted to be out here for a little while. So today we're going to be talking about gray rocking. I did some research this week, and it turns out there are essentially no studies conducted on the gray rocking method. For those of you that don't know, gray rock is essentially a metaphor. So it's a way for us to deflect or diffuse further abuse from a partner, family member, or even a coworker. And I have used this in a professional environment as well, not just a personal one. Simply put, it's essentially when a person who is enduring abuse purposely acts as boring as possible during any encounters with their abuser. And this typically gained recognition within the mental health circles as a tool and coping mechanism for those navigating relationships with individuals exhibiting traits of narcissism, manipulation, and toxic behaviors. This is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to respond to legal abuse. So anytime our abusive exes are kind of putting us through the ringer with court or anything like that, being as boring as possible just really keeps it, I don't know, I guess you could say level for the most part. They still, from my experience, they still have their outbursts. They still get just as upset about you doing the gray rock method because you're no longer interesting, and they really want you to be interesting to them. So just keep that in mind. It's not a foolproof theory. Psych in itself is still labeled as a soft science. So it doesn't have much data to it, is essentially what that means. Gray rocking, it typically, will exhibit behaviors like, shrugging, nodding, shaking her head, less wordy responses, using one-word answers, non-committal phrases, gray phrases, avoiding eye contact. The responses would be brief, not a lot of elaboration, and then essentially ending or leaving the interactions as quickly and as safely as possible. This technique is best utilized during toxic dynamics, and this goes to show with like emotional manipulation, gaslighting, stuff like that. Word salad is a heavy one that abusers I know like to use, and the word salad is when they respond to your complaint or your grievance with like a really confusing response. So it's nothing that you've said or done. It's just a tactic that they have that's worked in the past for other people to just be like, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to deal with this person. And it works for them. All these methods that they use, that these predators use, have worked for them in the past. So they're going to just keep using them. It's tried and true in their brain. Gray rocking can come in handy with relationships that are difficult. Also things like abusive coworkers, who are regularly attempting to start fights or drama. Relationships that involve unavoidable interactions with manipulative siblings, step-parents, in-laws, or other family members or relatives. And also relationships with roommates, host family members who exert controlling or manipulative behaviors. This can include, things like geriatric abuse. You'll see the older population being manipulated as far as maybe finances goes and things like that, wills, power of attorney, and stuff like that. And gray rocking works just as well in those situations. So if you have like co-parenting duties with a narcissistic ex partner, like most of us on this channel do, the non-toxic parent would likely have to interact with the manipulative parent on a regular basis. Co-parenting, right? If the manipulative partner attempts to start a fight or get a rise out of the other parent, the gray rock technique can definitely be used in the form of sort of bland agreements like, if you say so, that's how you feel, stuff like that. That's how you feel might be a little bit touch and go. You might, if you haven't done that, you might give it a shot, but definitely if the next response that you get, which should always be in writing, if we don't know that yet, we need to know that. The next response that you get, if it's nasty, you should just kind of, I would say, not respond. At this point, going through your divorce, filing for divorce, all that good stuff, you need to be emotionally capable and fully prepared to ignore. There will be, especially in the first year or so, an onslaught of threats of, harassment, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, maybe even financial abuse, if you haven't got everything locked up or got a new source of income or anything like that. So when that happens, you really have to resort to these gray rock techniques. Narcissists, they'll typically react abruptly, stubbornly, to these gray rock techniques, usually with aggression if their tactics aren't working, which is why gray rock is kind of recommended. It's so hard to tell because every abuse dynamic once you're leaving is so different. It's so different. You really have to use your best judgment, because they will get upset once their response techniques aren't working with you and you're not getting emotionally escalated. That's when they'll start to get a little bit more aggressive. This can work. Let's say you've gotten everything down to your communication is now it's limited to only in writing formats. Okay. This can work to your advantage. I don't recommend ever manipulating an abuser. I think that can put us in a really unsafe situation. But if let's say you've moved or you're enrolled in the address confidentiality program, or, you're just like a little bit safer, the gray rock technique down the line can definitely exhibit their behaviors to a judge because it doesn't matter for them. They really think that we're their property, and they'll continue to react to a certain degree, even in writing. And I think it's a legal system flaw. I think that because they just are typically never held accountable for anything, that they've learned that it's okay to talk to people that way. And it's not, but that's also where you have power and control to allow that into your world, so to speak. So if you've limited your contacts like you're supposed to be just in writing, you don't have to read the things. You don't really have to review a whole lot. If your parenting agreement states they get, let's say Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every other weekend, those are the only times you should be checking your email from them and reading any correspondences. And even then, the correspondences that you are responding to or reading should be limited to literally communication about the kiddos that are involved. It shouldn't be anything else. So it should be like time, dates, pickups, stuff like that. It shouldn't be, well, when we were together, you did this, and when we were together, you did that. None of that deserves a response anymore. You're leaving. You don't have to put up with it anymore. And I want you to feel empowered when you start to consider that, because naturally, since we've been exposed to the abuse for so long, there almost is a sense of deserving it. And it's uncomfortable when we stick up for ourselves in our own head and just say to ourselves, I don't deserve that. It's uncomfortable. I know as a codependent, previously I was really codependent. So it would be hard for me not to respond because it was my first language. I was willing to accept the behavior and communicate with somebody like that. Nowadays, if I look back in time and I ask myself who I was 4 years ago when I was going through all this, what I should be doing, no response is a response. So I would not know myself these days if I asked, my younger self 4 years ago. They also will try to do things like changing the narrative. That's where that word salad technique comes in handy. They'll do things like continuing to email. I know in a couple instances it'd be like, hey, my phone's not working, so we can't do video calls. And I would get several back-to-back emails about how I'm ignoring him and refusing to comply and all these kind of nonsense emails. And also for a while, this is just what happened to me, and this is kind of funny, but my abuser would send me emails from his own email, but he would communicate and say like they were from his attorney. So it would come from his email account, but he would say like, from such and such attorney at law representing, his name, insert here, and stuff like that, which was wild because, it just goes to show the lengths that these people will go to when they start to get really desperate for that fuel. And it should kind of fire you up in a way. It should kind of be like, okay, we're on top. We got this going. So look at those little moments, like moments of success. But definitely the one reason that I recommend Gray Rock is because it creates a safe emotional space for me. So when I was adopting less emotionally reactive stances and creating that space for self-reflection and emotional regulation, it gave me clarity, and it also started teaching me the people that I wanted to be around were healthy and happy and healed. And it gave me the ability to sort of absorb them. I kind of glued myself to their hips because I saw how they were behaving. I saw, what they would say. I saw how they would act, and I wanted to be more like that. And taking space from my abusive situation allowed me to build up healthy coping skills in the meantime. So let's say 2 weeks into no contact because it's been Gray Rock mode. Now, 2 weeks into this, I get an email from them and it's particularly nasty. Well, I've just been communicating with 32, million, just joking, but let's say 32 people that are all healthy and they have a good mindset and they do their own coping skills and they've been through some things, but they've handled it, and I want to handle my things how they handled their things. So this is a part of that. So now I can come into that email 2 weeks later and really communicate in a way that's intentional and educated and comes across as such as well. So I'll try to keep it short today, 11 minutes. Bleh, I feel like I could just gab. But that's all I got for today. It's a Gray Rock method. Again, there's not a lot of data or research that has been conducted on it, unfortunately. So I don't have actual statistics or numbers to send to you guys. But it's definitely a method that I will always recommend. It's your good word for today, for this week, probably. Go into this weekend, knowing that you've got it. Keep your emotions kind of level-headed. Deal with the emergent communications and the urgent communications and the kid-centered communications. Other than that, we're not going to tolerate it anymore, and you got this. I'm proud of you.
Don't let the doubt in me